Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me? Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys. Doug.
Freaky Friday. We're talking about Freaky Friday, right?
Freaky
It's a Friday.
Friday,
Lindsay Lohan?
Friday the 13th.
No?
Freaky.
Thursday the 12th.
Jamie Lee Curtis, sort of referenced in this movie as well, but she's in the one with Lindsay Lohan, right? Was that her?
Yes. Sorry.
It was two.
Yeah.
Frozen. There was
There's a couple of those. I paused it.
Oh.
Paused it.
I was like,
Paused it on the universal
something's up with
screen.
your,
So if you didn't see our posts on Instagram and you just follow us on our different podcast formats, this week we are going over Freaky, 2020 comedy horror thriller put out by Universal. And the reason why we're talking about this movie for this month is because this was on the rumored map as a part of a Blumhouse compilation house. So potentially seeing some of these scenes in real life in the coming months. So we figured let's dive in, give this thing a watch, and see what we're working with. See if it would translate into a house well, what scenes would, what wouldn't. And of course, first off, we have our beer, which I'm pretty proud of myself. I bought this beer a couple weeks ago just because it was horror-ish themed, but it does match up perfectly to what we're talking about tonight. So I guess I'll just start it off with my beer, and I'll let y'all introduce yours. But I have the Butcher Comin'. Pretty cool. Little double New England IPA from Three Sons Brewing, which is right in Florida. It's Dania Beach, Florida. It's a microbrew. I don't know. I haven't heard from these guys or had anything from them. But yeah, I mean, this thing couldn't be more perfect. Or not. It has a little meat cleaver with some blood on it, and I mean, the Blissville is the name, I think. The Blissville Butcher. The Butcher Comin'. So it makes perfect sense. 8.2% alcohol. And it is a collaborated beer with Orchestrated Minds Brewing. Beer. So interested to see what this is.
They're also a Florida beer.
What this is looking like. But what do you guys have around the table tonight?
Well, I do believe they were the Blissville Beavers.
The Beavers. Okay, we got two tie-ins. We got a little beaver beer.
So this is...
We're 2 for 2.
Busy as Daggy, whatever the heck that means. But it's tripping animals. I think we've had a few different things
We've done them before. We did that with the Willy's Wonderland because of all the different animals.
We definitely we did some of their stuff. I don't know if we had that one specifically.
I don't think we've had this one, but we've had them. Always good stuff. This is a sour ale with blackcurrant, blueberry, and mangoes. Could be a little too busy, but we will
find
out. That's a lot of stuff.
A lot
That's
of
funky.
stuff tends to be sours or.
So I figured that was a good tie-in.
That is we're 2 for 2 right now. I'm sure Seamus will find a way to tie it in.
Oh, of course I will.
The one beaver nobody wants to touch.
I've got one called...
Am I getting ahead of myself?
Never. Second Coming. It's by Resident Culture. I've had this before, so I think we had it on one of our other killer reviews, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I remember the black can. But we all know that, serial killers don't just come once.
No.
They come twice or more. So it's the Second Coming of the Butcher.
Yep.
It's an India Pale Ale. I know I've had this one before, so... Last I remember checking, I think it was like over a 4 for me, so it's probably pretty good. I don't quite remember though, so I guess we'll find out. I think these guys are from North Carolina, so not quite Florida, but
in our hemisphere.
Yeah, I was on the East Coast.
All right, let's crack these open. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, pretty close. Not bad.
I'm never good at that. I'm either too early or too late.
This is mine's very hazy coming out. But that is to be expected with the double IPAs. These are the ones that, I don't know if there's anything in there, but I like if we get some cream at the end of this thing. I'll pop that thing right up front and center. You can definitely get the hops coming off of mine.
I got too much head in mine. I always get too much head.
This poured pretty frosty,
This is definitely the New England IPA.
but thick.
Which is funny. So like you have
Definitely.
you have a double NEPA.
Mhm.
I have what's called I have just a standard IPA, but then you read the back and it's a hazy IPA that's hopped with Strata, Sabro, and HBC. So it's funny how like it's almost like IPAs become super. I don't want to say general in term, but like you say IPA now, it's almost like you just assume that it's hazy, or they just assume that like we make a hazy IPA and we'll just slap IPA on the can.
Yeah.
And then someone like my father, who is convinced he's going to find one that he likes, but he never does, because
It's a matter of time. Damn it.
He's just not into the hazy. He's not a haze bro, man.
Yeah.
But he likes standard IPAs, so he buys this as it says IPA on it. Then he pours it, and he goes, "That's not what I wanted." It's just funny how that happens. Like it's almost like NEPA is no longer like the term that we use to describe a hazy IPA.
Yeah.
NEPA is just one style of a hazy IPA, I guess, or just one other way to call it that. But it's interesting.
Well, let's dive into these. Cheers to
Cheers.
another freaky killer review.
Cheers to the killer reviews, boys.
Ooh.
Oh yeah,
Definitely a New England IPA.
I can remember
That's
why,
for
I
sure.
can remember why I like this one really good
Mhm.
a lot.
This is, if you want a New England IPA, this is definitely what you're getting out of this can. All right, so while we kick off, let me start that movie up there. Cool little title screen. Universal is in their little red font for this. This is also a Blumhouse production. So just quickly, like I said, this is Freaky from 2020, directed by Christopher Landon, which he was a big writer. And he started directing with some Blumhouse projects under his belt, but he wrote the story / screenplay for various things. But he did Paranormal Activity 2, 3, 4, the marked ones, and then the newest one, The Next of Kin, which was a Paramount exclusive, I think it was.
I don't know.
He also wrote Disturbia, Happy Death Day to You, and Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which was definitely more of like an indie style film, but that one was really good. He did also direct a couple things. He directed Happy Death Day 1 and 2, The Scout's Guide, and the Paranormal Activity, the marked ones.
So he's definitely out of that Blumhouse camp. That's
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
he's blended into those folks.
And the son of the famous actor Michael.
Is-
Landon.
okay, I did not know that one.
Neither did I.
No.
Michael London, huh? Look
Um,
at that.
He did actually propose a crossover movie called Freaky Death Day, which would have been a crossover with Happy Death Day and Freaky. And I mean, this movie, much like Happy Death Day and stuff like that, they're just stupid but fun movies. Like the Blumhouse does good with like these make 'em cheap, okay, just stupid funny movies.
Yeah, that's kind of what
I heard it
Blumhouse.
described as Blumhouse takes stories that aren't or shouldn't be horror movies and makes them into horror
Yeah,
movies.
so I mean, they're definitely they're the new age teen thriller type movies. That makes sense. Like, obviously, it's not designed for kids, but my point is like, if you think about the 70s and 80s, a lot of those early slasher movies were like the teen horrors. The teens would go to the movie theater for a midnight showing. They'd see a horror movie like that. And this is kind of like this generation's version of that in a way. Like, it takes a lot of what teenagers and young adults today know, and they turn them into horror movies, thriller movies, that sort of thing. And they definitely don't, like Nick was saying, they don't take themselves too seriously. A lot of the Blumhouse stuff doesn't. Obviously, Blumhouse is a production company. It's not necessarily the one specifically making it, but they pick directors and they pick writers
probably
that
gravitate
towards a
projects
certain
they want.
project. Yeah,
That keeps the brand in
Right.
sync.
Was the Purge Blumhouse or no?
Yes,
It was. Okay, that's what I thought.
but
I think it was.
this movie,
But I do my research to find that out for sure.
This was made on $6 million budget, and not that it crushed the box office, but it made $16 million. So not a great return. But when you look at the previous films like Happy Death Day, they did that on $4.8 million budget, and it made $125 million.
Yes, it is.
So they're
it is
pretty good
close.
about taking just simple concepts, like you said, movies that shouldn't be. Very much as like Freaky is Freaky Friday. Happy Death Day is essentially Groundhog's Day. but horror
Which I
themes.
think
Right.
the title of this was supposed to be originally, it was going to be Freaky Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
I think.
which is a fun little. I kind of rather it have been that because
I'm
it's
sure
a fun little play on.
I'm sure they probably
multiple-
tried.
And
Yeah.
I think I read that it was filmed completely in like 35 days.
And
Not surprising.
Yeah, I can imagine these movies. I mean, and they do it well. Like I said, this obviously didn't make as much money, but it came out April 2020, so that was like when we were coming out of the
it was released
pandemic.
in April 2020. It was probably made prior to the pandemic.
Yeah.
But obviously the pandemic pushed back the release date just because of
Mm-hmm.
the no one could go to theaters and that sort of thing. And the great thing about Blumhouse movies, at least a lot of the ones like this one, they rely a lot on unknown actors, first time
Mm-hmm.
actors, and they might get one or two big ones. Like obviously this movie's got Vince Vaughn. I don't know if you consider him a A-list male actor at this point, but the point is that they will usually get one or two big names and then a bunch of people you've never heard of.
Yep.
And they do great with it, and that's where they can save some of that money. So with the
Mm-hmm.
low budget, they can save some of that budget to put it more towards the effects and that sort of thing.
Like you said, this is starring Vince Vaughn and Kathryn Newton, who I think at the time was probably a little bit
relatively
newer.
new,
But she
think.
also did just get cast in Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania.
So she had some
So she's
movies, maybe not
big
names
stuff,
you know.
yeah.
Well, she was in one of the Paranormals, right? I think she was in one of the Paranormals.
I think she was in the webcam one,
Paranormal
which was probably 4.
4.
So I think she was the one where it was all webcam based and stuff like that. That makes sense because now I remember seeing that, which ties in perfectly with the director, the writer. It all meshes together. And she was the first choice for Millie, but she originally declined the offer, and then
she was in-
Jason Blum talked back
She was
to
in
her. and got
she
her
was
in.
in Detective Pikachu too. That makes
Oh, okay,
Now,
yeah.
now that I look at her, yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, not to say that they're like unknown actors, but they do get a lot of actors
Lower
that are,
tier.
they're newish. They're,
Yep.
they're kind of breaking into the business, and that's
'em
what's
cheap.
cool about that is that's part of it. I think part of it's also Blumhouse, like you guys were saying, is I think they definitely reach for intentionally trying to not imitate, but like be what would you call it there? Inspired by
Yeah.
the progenitors of the genre. Like horror was always that way, where you get very new actors and actresses. Jamie Lee Curtis, makes her name on some of these types of campy teen slasher movies.
Terror Train,
And
Halloween.
I think a lot of actors and actresses kind of do that now, and I think Blumhouse does that on purpose. I think it's less of a necessity and more of a it kind of reaches and harkens back to what we came from.
Yeah, and let's be honest, these aren't the movies that you need actors for.
No, you
know,
don't.
It's just
But there's also not really a lot of bad acting.
No.
necessarily. At
No,
least
they
not,
do.
not,
They do.
not
They do good.
unintentionally bad acting. I guess is my point.
they do good with it. So obviously the basis of this is after swapping bodies with a deranged serial killer, a young girl in high school discovers she has less than 24 hours before the change becomes permanent. The bulk of the movie takes place on Friday the 13th, and the film was actually released on Friday the 13th, November 2020. So summing up this scene behind us, this little slasher intro kind of thing is, it starts out, it's going through the whole cliche, campy slasher feel, and we should really expect some gnarly deaths because it starts right out with the kid going down to the basement and getting the wine bottle shoved down his throat so that you see it coming through his throat and then smashes it more and having it shatter, coming out his skin and like bleeding everywhere. And our killer can be seen wearing almost a hockey
Yeah,
mask.
it looks kind of like a hockey mask.
So obviously a reference to our favorite camp counselor killer, Jason.
Yeah, it's definitely a wink and a nod.
There's a cut to what I call a no-name character because I already forgot because they're just in this first scene. But she's getting her head smashed in with a toilet, and then a brilliant quick cut to another girl, horror cliche, getting something else smashed in. Thought that was a fun little like combo of this intro is like smashing the cliches like in your face, and you know what you're gonna get with this. And I feel
do
like sorta. But I feel like this, when it pertains to like a HHN house, I feel like the beginning of this movie and the ending of this movie
It's kind of where
are good for house
yeah.
portions. And that's kind of why I guess it'll work if they decide to do it as that like mashup-y, like here's a scene, cool, here's a scene. Because if they can get some of these kills from this front like portion into the house, it would be, I think, very fun. Having a girl getting her head
they
smashed
came
in.
out of the gate.
Yep.
There was, I think, 3 or 4 good kills, and I looked down and it was 6 minutes in,
Yep.
including like the opening credits or whatever.
Yep. But it's good. It's got the bottle kill, which I talked about. The girl getting her head smashed in with a toilet seat.
One girl gets hung up on the wall on the spear.
Yeah, spiked right through. The tennis racket.
Oh, the tennis racket.
He snaps a tennis racket over his knee and
both
then
sides of the neck or the head,
right through the dome
so that
piece.
it does the old arrow gag.
Yep.
It's sticking on both sides of his head.
It's very cliche, and it's intentional. You know this is what they're going for. They're making a cheap slasher movie in the new age and trying to put a ridiculous spin on it. So when like we were mentioning, that last kill where he kind of suspends the girl on it must be some kind of wall decor.
It was like a spear because he threw it first.
Oh, he threw it,
missed, and that's why it was in the wall.
Propped her on there,
and then he propped her on there as the parents come home.
As the parents were coming home, did that reference or trigger anything to you about another movie that we previously did? I think that one might have just been me and Seamus, but very similar to Scream.
There's a lot of homages in this whole opening scene. I mean, the on the wall thing. I mean, that's in a bunch of movies. It's also in the Santa Claus one.
Oh, Krampus.
No, the other one.
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Where he puts her on the
wall.
But
he said that I saw an interview with Christopher Landon, and he said that it was absolutely like a throwback to all of like the classic slashers.
Right. And that's kind of where that was going.
Like he definitely, and that's so common, but it's kind of good the way. It kind of keeps the gene pool. Everybody's connected in these movies.
Before the killer leaves the house, he sees this weird dagger knife thing.
Which is just happening to chill out.
Which is just never explained as to why it's there, but that's okay. It's a horror movie. It's a Blumhouse. It doesn't need to be explained. But you can tell it's freaky. It has like a little skull and a gem or whatever, and you see the parents coming in. They come in, they give a ridiculous scream, and then you see that the case has been broken. The dagger is now gone. And we get our title screen, Freaky, in a sort of insidious look, because it has that black screen, the red font, but it's like more cheeky. It's like a goofier font.
Is it Friday the 13th font too, though? The font?
Similar. It's like the blood dropping, but it reminds me of like that Insidious title card where it comes up and it's like, and it's like the strings. But this one has more of like a goofy style strings.
Very good.
Just like that. If you need any sound effects, just give me a call. So after that title screen, we are introduced to our main character, Millie, played by Kathryn Newton, a clear high school outcast. And this is where we are. Yeah, we're kind of there. You can see she's dressing kind of shitty, and they're discussing with the family about, I think, going to a dance or
homecoming.
Homecoming is coming up and stuff like that. I thought I would have been playing catch up a little bit longer, but I guess not. But we are introduced to her family. The mother, a clear drunk, maybe not at this point, but that's kind of the discourse through the whole thing.
By the older daughters.
Yep.
Looking at the wine bottle in the trash and giving her the side eye.
Yeah, the older daughter is the local cop.
Kind of another Scream. Another Scream reference, I guess, to a point.
Kind of like the father.
One of the characters is, her older siblings, a local sheriff.
Blissfield.
I was trying to think of like Blissfield. What I couldn't remember exactly, but like Blissfield, it is the town. Yeah. I feel like there's another movie that has like a name like that that's like ironic. And it might just be because I've been watching Sons of Anarchy and the town's charming.
Yeah,
I feel like there was a horror movie that was like...
I'm sure there have been a few.
That was some kind of like cliche like title of the town where it's like implied.
There's been a few that are kind of like that. I can't think of anything right now.
That's a good trivia category. What town? What horror flick is this town? From?
Yep.
But Springfield from Nightmare. So I mean, it's kind of like that same idea where it's Midtown USA in the middle of flyover country.
Yeah.
And it's just called a ridiculous name.
So we are now introduced in this scene. She's picked up by her friends. Josh Detmer, played by Misha Oshervich. Sorry, you're not going to hear this, but I butchered your name. And Nyla, played by Celeste O'Connor. And it was funny, too, because we do know Millie's last name. They say it, I think, a couple times. But when I was looking at the IMDb casting, Millie just didn't even have a last name, but these two side characters did. Thought it was a little interesting. She didn't get the full name treatment on there, but I'm sure it's just a quick edit. But Josh comes out with what is my favorite line in this movie, and possibly any movie, where he yells over to the guy on the street, I love your black wiener, Mr. Daniels. I'm a huge dachshund fan. The man had a dachshund. The man was black. And they're like, you can't say that. He's like, no, the dog. Like,
The dog is black.
the dog is black, Riley, or whatever her name is, Nyla. But as a huge dachshund fan, dachshund owner, that's just like the classic dachshund joke that probably gets old to some people, but for me, it's just never going to get old. But it orchestrated pretty quickly, and it did establish that Josh was kind of be that pseudo comic relief / like
Dry
humor, very suspect jokes that probably weren't
sarcastic.
Yeah. If and the characters, they set up this as stereotypical as possible, where they have the gay character and they have the black character, and the only reason they did that was so they could point it out with a line, which I think was in the trailers, which was like, did you need to do that, Blumhouse? Like, I get it, like you're leaning into the tropes, but it seemed to be like a little too on the nose. Like, it was just, I felt it was a little unneeded, but they did it, I feel like, strictly so they could have the line that comes later in the movie that was, I think he goes like, I'm black, or you're black, I'm gay, we're gonna die, or something like that. Whereas, like, that was a trailer moment.
I think it was the long setup.
Yeah,
But
maybe
if you want to look at it another way, the trope is really that it's always the black guy that gets killed first.
Yeah.
That's that trope. And then, gay leads are not as, we're not as prominent in a lot of horror movies, obviously, 20 years, 30 years ago.
Good that they gave it the representation, but it was like to get away with jokes like this.
It was Nightmare 2 or 3. I forget his name, but there's one prominently gay actor in that movie, which his character wasn't, but he was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also kind of maybe where he's harkening back a little bit too.
Yep.
But I'm one of those, again, hoity-toity film people that I think it's clever what they're doing, more so than just being a straight-up rip-off of what we've seen
Before,
over and over again. Plus, the idea that who you think the killer is and how it turns that on the head.
Yeah.
Like, they set it up to be one thing, and then they completely spin that around on you throughout the movie.
Or like the killer is very much known, but like because they did the whole switch, you got to do the whole rigmarole of like pointing out that it's not, and
how there's not like one, like who you think is gonna be like the cliched jock isn't really a cliched jock in any way. He's actually the good guy.
And we've got Mr. Bernardi shows up here from Ferris Bueller's Day
Yeah,
Off.
Mr.
exactly.
Bernardi, and
And the overtly dickhead teacher.
Yep.
Shit.
And I was gonna say, if he looks familiar, it's because he was in that '80s movie with High School.
Alan Ruck, I think his name.
Alan Ruck.
Yeah, he was Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yep. But yeah, the dickhead woodshop teacher, which I think I had a Mr. Bernard, or
I don't remember.
so, I don't know, but funny that the name was still
Just
there.
asshole wood teacher. That's all you gotta know.
But then a text alert is sent out to everybody, and I forget the exact context, but it referenced brutal murders in the killers at large, and it was sent out almost like an Amber Alert. And I've never been in the area where a serial killer was at large, so I can't say they won't send that out. But
I kind of hope they do.
But
That's
who
kinda
knows?
cool, I
I
guess.
mean, it's pretty open ended. I don't, I'm sure people would kind of go into chaos if that one's sent out, but just send it out to a bunch of high schoolers and they just keep going on with their day like nothing happened. But then it does cut to a new scene with Josh and our leads there kind of hiding out at the theater, it looks like, their auditorium. And he comes in clearly, again, being our comic relief of sorts, the kind of like tells it like it is. Oh, it's a slaughterhouse out there. It's like, poor choice of words there, but he just does not care. He pulls up a video of another student sobbing over the dead student, and then he just watches it and he's just like, they weren't even friends. It's like, I like him. He's keeping it real. He's just calling it like it is, because in situations like that, is that right above me? In situations like that, you see all the people on Instagram, Facebook, like searching for that clout, like, oh my God, we'll miss you so much. We love you. It's like, you guys weren't even friends at all. Like, you didn't even know this person.
But you know what's funny is, like, that's high school.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's
exactly.
almost
Yeah.
like, I can see this happening where they're not taking it serious. They think it's,
yeah, it's just,
this is they're not even friends. Like, that's how fucking awful kids are to each
oh,
other.
they
So,
are.
like,
And if you're outside of that circle, like these
Right.
kids are, like, they're not friends with those people. So, like, they don't care at all.
Right, which is why his character is so funny because he's just
Homecoming game and all kicks off.
Yep, just as planned.
Just a serial killer.
As planned.
Oh, look, it's the one beaver nobody wants to touch. Sorry.
You notice like the back of the kids' jerseys, one says like bro, but it's like Breaux. So like Strode, bro. Like, there's a bunch
so
of,
one
like,
says Strode.
Right.
Yeah.
So Strode, one says bro, just spelled French. So it's like totally playing on that whole like bunch of stupid jock character type things.
But the one that says Strode is like another nod.
Right.
So Laurie Strode, which is kind of cool. That I don't care how old these things get. I do enjoy these little nods.
One of our main character friends is, instead of a cheerleader, she's the fucking
mascot, the beaver itself.
Right.
But yeah, so that
she has to, wear the costume home.
Yeah, like she has to keep that.
Yeah,
they throw the orange soda at her. Just like, poor girl gets beat up. But she's the homecoming game is over. She's kind of waiting for her mom to pick her up after the game. But clearly she's running late, and it kind of cuts to a scene of her mom passed out drunk.
Mom's the wino.
Mom's a booze hound. And that's when her sister comes home. Clara? I have her name somewhere, but I'm going through all my notes. But she's like, oh shit, and she starts to call Millie. And of course, coincidentally enough, Millie's phone just starts to slowly die, and the battery's dead. And as the battery dies, the lights start to flicker. They go down, and then across the way of the parking lot, you see Vince Vaughn as the Blissfield Butcher, which is something that they referenced earlier, being a urban legend of sorts.
Oh, right. The kids were talking about how it was a legend about it happens around homecoming.
Yep.
And one of them says, oh, that urban legend just grows every year and every year.
So it's kind of playing on the whole Jason thing, too. Like, Jason was very urban legend-y. I mean, like, Freddy and Michael didn't really get into the urban legend realm. Like, they weren't talked about as an urban legend.
Freddy was, but Michael obviously wasn't, because he was just a dude who escaped from a mental institution. Mm-hmm. Jason was definitely more of the folklore type character who came around on Friday the 13th to slaughter not babysitters, that's Michael. To slaughter camp counselors. Yep.
So we're coming up on the scene. The lights just killed off, but there is a little chase scene between the two. Where the butcher catches her and stabs her with that dagger that we saw from the first little scene of all those kills and stuff like that.
Therein lies the magic.
And that's the magic. And that's the magic about horror movies and slashers like this, where you can just suspend your disbelief. But while doing so, I guess we later find out that she also hurt him. So I don't know.
I think when later in the movie, when they're reading the inscription on the knife, I think she says something about if it's like you're supposed to create the sacrifice, but if it's unsuccessful, which was unsuccessful because she fought him back, I guess,
and she lived. Yeah, it was
that's why they ended up in this state.
Mm-hmm. So we get this little chase scene where it ends with her getting stabbed at center field. The sister comes in time and starts shooting in the air. The butcher runs off, but something happened because there was, the storms are brewing. The lights changed. I think it went purple. You started to see different flashes.
Which is weird because like you're scaring off a dog, right? If a mad killer is stabbing somebody, you shoot them.
Yeah, not
like you're trying to scare off a dog. I'll shoot in the air.
Pew pew. Like you're also a cop. Like you should be able to like have good enough aim where, I mean, it's not even just a person. That's also your sister being murdered, and yeah, you would think that they would be able to just anticipate that a little bit better and get the butcher off. But we're going to skip ahead just a second to get to the end of this little fight. There we go. We'll jump ahead a little bit because there's a little... That scene does drag a little bit. So we are now... All we skipped past really was that little montage-y style scene of them at the police station after the fact. Slow motion, the mother coming down as she's probably woken up 6 hours later. And we get all these crazy flashes now.
And make sure you note that the knife goes into evidence at the police station so that everybody knows where this magical knife is.
The magic dagger is in the police station. And we cue right to the clock at midnight. It goes black and it opens up to Millie waking up in her bed. And I'm still going to refer going forward to Millie as Millie and the Butcher as Butcher. Obviously, at this point, we know something's up. Spoiler alert. They swapped bodies. So now the serial killer Butcher is in Millie's body, and Millie, the teenage girl, is in Vince Vaughn's human giant body, serial killer style. So I still refer to Millie as Millie, Butcher as Butcher. When I say Millie, I mean the blonde-haired girl. When I say Butcher, I mean Vince Vaughn. Should be basic enough, right? How could we possibly get confused in this movie? But Millie wakes up, clearly showing us that something's wrong. She doesn't know where she is. She's very confused. The mother comes in, offers pancakes, and just the sense you can get is that something is afoot. It didn't overtly come out and say, hey, they swapped bodies, but as the audience, we know that.
Pretty well established.
Yeah.
That this is what's going to happen in the movie.
Yep. And then the way we really get it is once it shows us Vince Vaughn. Because Millie doesn't really talk. I guess the serial killer, the Blissfield Butcher, is a quiet type. But once we get to Vince Vaughn's character, the Butcher waking up in his like little homeless crack den mannequin loft area, that's when we can really tell, because this is when we get like Vince Vaughn at his finest.
Right.
I mean, this was a great role. It reminded me a lot of his like Fred Claus,
It wouldn't
very
surprise
childish
me.
almost. I mean, he's playing a child.
Wouldn't surprise me if it was kind of like written for him.
Yeah, I mean,
type of
it's
thing.
perfect. It fits him very well. But in that scene, we're introduced to the homeless guy, and Vince wakes up and is like, "Oh my God, what is wrong?" He sees this like crackhead who's asking him for candy or pills or drugs or whatever, and then he's like, "Do you see a little like 5-foot blonde girl?" And he's like, "Oh, now I know you got the good stuff. Like, give me the drugs. I know you have drugs." It's like, "No, I don't have drugs."
I want to think I'm a young blonde girl.
Yeah. And he offers to perform sexual intercourse on him for drugs as he's running away. Oh yeah, and that's his little mannequin area, and this is Friday the 13th. So they woke up on Friday the 13th with the swapped bodies. And obviously this is where our story, it is a horror movie, and it does have a lot of those slasher tropes. But from that first scene to the end scene, there's a lot of instances where it's not that. It's more of like that comedy, like switching bodies kind of thing. It's not your typical suspenseful horror anymore. It's almost like a thriller-ish, like tracking down the people thing.
Which plays to the part where they take stories that really aren't horror films and make them horror films. But with this one, it was really that was really evident, because I thought about the middle got very much into the, I would call it a lull, but it was like you said, it got away from the horror tropes or the horror theme. And if you took those initial kills, or if you took any of the kills in this movie and just changed them to run-of-the-mill stuff that you can put in any movie, they just got shot. Instead of being murdered in these crazy ways, instead of having a tennis racket wedged in both sides. It's like the guy was just shooting people, right?
Yeah.
And that was the murder scenes. This would just be, you could still make this entire movie, and you'd only have to take out the instance of the kills, and this would just be a suspenseful thriller movie.
Yeah.
So they took a movie that's just a thriller and swap out any of the kills to these crazy horror kills,
Yeah.
and made it a horror film.
And there's a lot of fun, like, little kills, and it looks like we're getting close to one, because I did skip it ahead a little bit, because they're, like we said, we are in that lull of the movie, where it is, like, the characters figuring out what's going on, slowly getting through the working of it.
It definitely had a middle stretch where it kind of dragged.
Yeah, and after we leave Vince Vaughn's character, we go back to Millie's, who is at home eating pancakes like a maniac, which is like the sign of like, oh, that's the Butcher. We get it now.
But it's her body, so the body wouldn't be starving. Just because it's his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm. I didn't break it down to that level, but we could have. And then, obviously, the mother, for a reason, is just, like, playing around with a butcher's knife, or a kitchen knife, and the butcher is looking at that thing like, man, I can't wait to grab that and start stabbing. And then the mailman greets us, knocks on the door, and comes right on and just says, oh, I was going to just stick this in your box, but I figured I'd check out how you were. So it's like,
And was
another
that,
horror
was the
trope, or
connection
what?
that when the what was his name? What's the friend's name?
Josh.
when he was showing him like the I think it must have been the men's dating app.
Oh,
and he
yeah.
shows the girls, look, it's our mailman. And they were like, is it the mailman? And then later that scene where the mailman comes to the door, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
Because they made a point to show us the mailman's on this
Yep.
dating app, and then it didn't really, they didn't exploit that much.
Yeah, but I hope it was to poke fun at slashers of the past and not like just a bad line. But I'm sure with a lot of the other things they have in here, I can't imagine that it was
That
just a
doesn't
bad
tie in.
line. It was like
it
was-
ties in somewhere.
Yeah, it was put there for a reason. We did cut back to Vince Vaughn, who is now strolling around the town, kind of not fully understanding everything. He's walking around, but his face is on posters. His face is on the news channel. We saw that at Millie's house. So people start seeing him, and they're like, oh my God.
Well, he runs up to the guy with the dog.
And he runs up with the
Mr.
kid.
So-and-so. And he's like, aha!
And then one lady falls down. Is like, oh my God, it's the
him.
butcher, it's him.
And then it
has to
dawns
run
on
away.
him that, oh, it's me, but I look like the guy they're all looking
Yep.
for.
So like it is Millie in the butcher's body. So obviously, Butcher needs to run away, hide, and figure out what's going on. But Millie is now getting ready for school, and she rolls up like nothing happened the night before. Just got stabbed in the shoulder by a serial killer, and back to school the next day. She picked out like a 80s thriller-ish red jacket.
She went to must have went to her sister's closet because
Mm-hmm.
she was going through her closet and it was all like these really frumpy things.
Yeah.
And then she goes and they made a point that it was the sister's closet because the police uniforms were in there.
Yep.
Which that old trope where they do this in a lot of teen movies where they're going to do the transformation where the girl's like, oh, the ugly duckling, and becomes this. And they're like, okay, we're supposed to pretend that she's like this ugly duckling in the beginning. They're making fun of her at the locker.
Yeah.
The girls are making fun. It's like, okay, let's just we have to really suspend reality here to pretend just because she doesn't have the lipstick on yet,
Yeah.
she's ugly, and
She
everybody
has, like, a
pokes,
weird
and everybody pokes fun at her, and the boys don't like her.
Yeah.
And then she puts on a red leather jacket and some lipstick, and the whole place drops down. Everybody's mouth drops.
And
like,
I
oh my god!
I
It's
do
like-
love the scene, the slow mo,
Yeah.
the confetti
But
dropping.
All she did was put on a jacket, some lipstick, and put her hair in a ponytail. And all the guys that thought she was this gross thing now are all just standing around and
Jaw drops.
And
And
it's
the
like,
funniest thing too
okay.
is that was the male serial killer dressing himself. He knew how to do the makeup. He
That's-
knew how to do the
well,
lipstick.
that's why I
he put
thought
the hair up.
I wanted the lipstick to be a little wonky,
Smudgy,
a little
yeah.
like a little crooked and stuff, kind of like a.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the reveal where it was gonna be like all the shots from the back and the side, and then it goes to the front. And it's like record scratch, and it's like
It's like Mimi
It's
from
like Mimi from Drew Carey
Carey.
show. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
It's like, but that was not what we got. I think that would have derailed the movie a little bit, but that's the exact thought that I had in my mind. But yeah, and then that's when we get the comment from Josh, like, oh my God, is she cute? Like, that's all it took was a serial killer to take over your body. A red,
I think,
a red
again,
80s jacket and some hair.
One of those things where they're trying to play on the idea that, well, the cute petite blonde is the nerd that nobody likes.
Yeah.
It's different. It's not. It's flipping it on its head.
Yeah, like this girl would have been the popular girl. Like,
Right.
but Millie asks Ryler, who was the girl that
Don't
was
freak out.
talking trash to her in the beginning about her clothing and stuff, asks her to go somewhere private. And she thinks that she's going to be telling her some sort of secret of what happened the night before, trying to either, she's definitely not trying to console her. She's trying to exploit her so she can, be that person that's searching clout.
The
That's
scene,
what
the
we
scene
got.
that just went by. That
Oh, I
is
do
one
love
of the
this
best
scene.
scenes where she gets kicked in the nuts.
I do love this
And
scene.
he goes,
Oh, I have
balls. I got balls.
I got balls now. Yeah, and this is where we kind of are. So Vince Vaughn, we'll get there quickly. Vince Vaughn was showering at the school. He ran there because that was the only place where Millie, who's the butcher, kind of knew where she knew the surroundings. So she was showering. She came on out and ran into Josh and no, not Ryler. Naya. The names are too similar. The two friends, and this is where we get a good comic relief chase scene of her saying, it's me, and they're like, oh my God, it's the butcher,
and it's almost like it's almost slapstick where they're throwing throwing things at him. It wouldn't hurt
carrots
him,
and yeah.
he's like, really?
yeah,
Or she's like, really?
it's a good little bit, and then she starts, she'll throw him, be like, oh my God, I'm strong, like not knowing the powers that the killer has. But it is very almost tongue in cheek. That's just it is very slapsticky.
And it from the beginning he did a good job, but this scene really, or from here on out, it really did show how he did a really good job
Playing a
of
14-year-old
physically being her.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw an interview with her and him and how they brought them together before they shot any of the movie to rehearse in the sense of just to learn each other's mannerisms and language, and they both said it paid off. And I think obviously he's better at it than the inverse than she is.
Yeah.
But he really did a good job.
It was hysterical.
Of the mannerisms of a young girl.
I think it
And
works
at one
for
point
him.
in the interview, like they showed some scenes where he was using his hands a lot, you know. And what's her name? Kathryn? Is that the actress'
Kathryn,
name?
yep.
And she's, I don't use my hands like that. You know? But anyways, my point was he did a really good physical acting of
And I think what
portraying.
helps is that he is that actor. I mean, in a lot of things, he's more of a comedic, physical type of actor. So I think it works for
which
him.
is might be like you said, it was almost written.
I think
for,
it was written
not
almost
if
for
not
him.
written for him, written
For a guy
that
like
type
him,
of actor.
yeah. 'Cause he's not in a whole lot of drama or thriller. I mean,
No.
he's in a few things, but he's more known for.
He's taken it easy the last couple of years. It feels like you don't see Vince Vaughn around as
He
much.
wasn't.
as
He hasn't been in a whole lot. Like,
No,
I
it
think this
was-
is like the first thing he was in. You know,
It's been a
while.
little bit since, because he had that hot streak of like
Yeah, well, he was
Wedding
in that-
Crashers, The Internship,
that big
Dodgeball,
stretch
Old
of
School.
funny movies.
But he might have been also getting like shoehorned, pigeonholed, or whatever you did.
Yeah, and that's why he probably
into
took some
that.
time off. It's kind of like what Matthew McConaughey did. He was only in rom-coms, and he's like, nobody, you know, if people aren't going to hire me for anything else other than a rom-com, I'm just going to go away. And that's what he did. And he went away, and he waited, and then finally got into some dramas, which is what he wanted. So it's like you kind of have to go away
It's the
to
case,
create
just
your
like
relevancy.
Adam Sandler,
Yep.
Jim Carrey, like a lot of those guys. They can be in a lot of movies, but they play the same character.
Right, 'cause there's-
Will Ferrell. It's
Yep, exactly.
you get caught in that cycle of success because it's good, but it doesn't.
The bathroom scene's pretty funny.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
Like, he's like, hey, do I wipe?
Yeah, just whapping
And then
it
he's like,
whacking
oh,
around.
yeah, the
flapping
sound
it around
effects.
the-
He's in there. You can hear whoop, 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 whoop. It's like, guys, you got to see this. And then
Do I wipe?
And then Josh is like,
But-
what is it big? What's
Is it- yeah, what's it look like?
But I like the line where even like Nyla, she just said, she's like, you know, she's got a dick and you're wearing Chanel No. 5.
Yeah.
I think we're way past labels
Yeah.
at this point.
And then he's like,
Which is
well,
funny, 'cause
we're in
it's
the
true.
boys' room, okay? One scene that we did jump past that I loved was actually the death of Ryler.
Do I
Flapping it around.
ripe? Do I ripe?
But Ryler, he grabbed her, Millie did, grabbed her and was like, oh my god, the butcher's here, you need to hide. And he shoves her into the the cryo athlete pod and pushes it down to negative 300 degrees, which...
So does that every high school have a pod that's and
Yeah,
and,
you know.
but you say okay, it's used for what? It can't be used for the athletes because it was only about 4'7" tall.
Yeah.
She just barely fit in it. So I guess it's only there for the very short athletes, and I don't think those machines go to minus 300.
Yeah,
I don't
it's-
think so either,
I don't think so
especially...
either.
But obviously,
You would think there'd be some safety
you point
protocols.
those things out just for fun.
But it is cool when the butcher comes out from the shower, he notices that the pod is on. He opens it up, and there's Ryler completely frozen, and he gives her the little tap, and then the big frozen body just falls and smashes into
CGI
ice.
smashes
And it's
into her.
cool. It's cool. It's not blood and guts. It's human ice cubes.
It's Jason
and then,
X.
and then of
Jason
course
X,
the
yep.
scene with just the hand holding the phone.
The phone, yep.
Yeah.
So something that maybe we could see at Horror Nights. I don't know if that kill scene could actually be done. Maybe if you get some sort of magnetic structure that puts itself back together, I don't know. But
I love when he's reading the stuff on the bathroom wall.
Yeah, she's reading the men's room stall
then she
walls, and then
sees-
she finds out her name's in there.
oh yeah, never want to be mentioned. Was she like a cock gobbler? Gobbler, yeah.
What was funny is she was in a movie called
Cock blockers.
Cock Blockers.
Yeah, with
which
John
is
Cena,
which
I think it
might
was.
have been a
little
little
nod.
nod to that too.
This is where she realizes she's in the strong body, and she
Right, she could scare people.
she likes not being the intimidated, meek one.
And it was funny. I thought that just a quick Google search of what the butcher had heard during the stabbing led them to the page that explained the dagger,
Oh, the
the
knife.
curse, oh, it's all in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. You take Spanish.
You're in Spanish 3.
Like,
And then even when he goes
I'm
into
dyslexic.
he goes into the classroom and the Spanish teacher's mad because he can't speak Spanish or read Spanish. And he's like, and then he's like, I got a note.
Yeah. But they bring it to there, and they pretty much find out there that the curse is the souls will swap for 24 hours if the sacrifice isn't successful. After that, it is now a permanent switch. So we know that our characters and the movie is going to speed up a little bit because we're on the clock, essentially. And we were at that quick little filler scene where he's reading the graffiti. But what I did thought was funny was the little kid that was barking at Millie before came in, pounded on the door, was like, hey, I got to take a dump. It's just like she gets out realizing now that the butcher's body holds him up and scares this kid until he pisses his pants. But we are coming up now, too, when Millie enters the wood shop. And Mr. Bernardi's probably not in the best position. But again, Millie's body is not the butcher's body.
Right.
So
you
have to adapt.
Gets the best of her the first couple rounds of this little scuffle.
Yep. We get a little bit of comic relief fun here. A fun kill. She walks over, she turns the table saw on and starts just like attacking him. At first he like counters and like screams at her. It was like, it was self-defense, and then that didn't really stop him. They scuffle around a little bit. He gets the best of her, knocks her down.
Kicks her, punches her,
kicks her a bunch. This dude does not like Millie's character. But then Millie grabs a screwdriver and stabs him in the neck.
Right in the neck. Gets the gusher going, the big squirting.
But then we get another fun kill. I mean, this thing is chock full of fun kills.
That was a good one.
And
The table saw.
you use the table saws for a reason. We knew, why. There's a reason why this wasn't a history teacher or an English teacher.
Good point.
It's a wood shop teacher because we got these fun toys to work with in there. So we get that table saw up and running, and we slice this poor bastard right down the middle. That should pass the grade.
That would make it to the house.
And that's another one. Like, there's certain things in this
Yeah, they're definitely
that you're like,
scenes.
if this is a house, this scene has to be in there. I would say some stuff from the beginning.
I'd say this
has to be in there.
Even his drug buddy hangout, like that too would be kind of
Cool. Yeah, that setting,
All that
that
shit
like
that's
waking
in there.
up setting, him popping out. That's a great setting to work with. I mean, we haven't seen
blood.
We haven't seen the Black Phone yet, which is also the rumored, like the house that's rumored is Blumhouse, and it's the Black Phone and Freaky. So it's going to be split. So we're not going to get a full house. So maybe 4 to 5 scenes of each. So I mean, the mannequin
safety
intro,
first. She puts the goggles on.
Yeah, she gotta put the goggles on.
She grabs him by the.
And this
feet
right
and
there is
pushes
that
him.
pure like half split.
So good.
Chef's kiss. That's a great one right there. But now she leaves she's leaving the wood shop, and this is where the butcher and Millie come face to face in their new bodies for the first time.
After the Super Troopers show up.
Yeah, the guy's walking by, clearly just letting us know that the cop's presence is there. And there is a short little standoff between Millie and the butcher. And some comic relief, we think it's about to go down, and instead she just screams like a girl.
Because she realizes I'm in this. He realizes whatever. I'm in this body. I can play the victim here.
Mm-hmm. And the police are right there, like, oh my god, it's the butcher! Help! Oh my god, help me!
I don't remember. Did they establish why the police were there? Because someone called and said he was in the building.
I think they're just I think they're there just because the high school student was killed.
Not that I'm questioning the logic of the movie,
but because the high school student was killed, the killer was quote unquote on the loose. We got the text message through it, so
of course
we're just there to assume.
It's a horror movie. So the car never starts on the first crank.
Has to be.
Never.
It has to be.
It has to be a piece of shit that will not start.
It has to be, as the
gotta
police
get
called it.
Cranking, and then just as you're about to get caught up to, it starts up.
As the police call, a shit heap is going down west or whatever.
Can you move the seat forward? Can you move it a little forward more? Can you move the seat a little forward more?
And it is good because like they do have these little back and forths where they can play with like Vince Vaughn's clear like size, body change. But in that girl's reaction, I think it's done brilliantly. I love these stupid little things like that. Can you just move it just a little bit more?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Just one more. Just okay. Are you good back there?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm good. It's stupid. It's a filler. I get it, but it's fun. So they're off running down, and they blow past the cop, which is of course Millie's sister, I keep forgetting her name, but I think it's like Chloe or
Charlotte
Char.
or something.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte.
Is it short for Charlotte?
Charlotte,
Charlotte.
Char, yeah.
I think the mother's Coral.
Yep. But they go blown by her, and then she already got the call that, the butcher was seen, 2 young people, and they're headed down this way, so she starts following them. Hot pursuit, little car chase, little Fast and Furious action over here. They blow,
I didn't
Hey,
see.
bitch.
I didn't see that the first time.
but this is where they pull into the parking lot of Discount Bonanza. And this is where the girl joked earlier about where, like, oh, is this where you got your clothes? Did your
she
mom
use
get you
her
your discount?
Employee discounts.
So you know that Millie's mom works there. The sister had followed them there. But they need to hide. They need to hide Vince Vaughn. They need to hide the butcher. And they need to get some sort of disguise. And we'll skip a little bit here because I feel like this scene coming up is a pretty longer, not unnecessary, but like in this movie I didn't need it.
It was part of this scene would be in this version of the movie that wasn't a horror movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If this was just a romantic thriller or whatever, that scene makes perfect sense. The whole family dynamic, sad, lost her husband, bonding. Oh, the daughter, because she's in this other guy's body, gets to have a conversation with her mother that she never would have had face to face. Oh, tear at the heartstrings. Could have done without it in this movie.
It definitely slows things down. It took a little too long. I mean, I don't hate the character development, but you're right. It kind of just feels off-putting in a movie like this.
Yeah, it was a little extended. It felt a little long.
So when they took the script of a non-horror movie and they made it the horror movie,
Yep.
they cut out some things. They forgot to cut out that section.
They
They were like,
didn't- yeah.
this is if it was made in the other genre.
Yeah.
Like, this got to go.
So
Who left the dressing room scene in? Who left it in? I told you that.
I told you to cut it. I told you to cut it.
Oh, the scene where he's coming out of he's coming out of the store with the mask on.
But I do love
that. He's doing the
love it.
Frankenstein walk because he can't see.
It's the Aaron Rodgers mask.
Hilarious.
Another little nod to another famous slasher wearing a mask.
Michael Myers.
Just wasn't painted white this time, but I do like the whole, just randomly picking an Aaron Rodgers mask. I thought that was fun. But they do find that on probably Instagram or some sort of social media that Millie was at this local haunted black light mini golf palace place, which again, this scene is going to be in the house. If there's a house with Freaky, there's got to be some sort of like...
You can't pass up dark fluorescent black lighting
with like the cheap little gags that they play here. There's a lot of like, not a lot. There's 2 I think instances of like the cheap jump scare, but it's done with like stuff that you would find at spooky Spirit Halloween. Just like the crappy little skeleton things, just like just popping out at you. But it's fun, and like this is just a perfect scene.
Sorry, the mask kills me.
Just
Is that like a Ben Affleck mask?
It's Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
He finally just has enough with it and rips it off. I love it. But no, it is again a funny little thing where like you couldn't get him a hat and a scarf or something. You go into a discount store and you find a.
Oh, that's one of the best parts of the movie. That made the whole scene.
But they walk into the little mini golf area and they start to see like security cameras right up front. For some reason, those are there. But they see Millie is in the back stalking around with Booker. I think his name was Booker. Was the other kid. And obviously,
Booker is
the jock,
is this guy here, the one she likes.
Yeah, the one that she
The one that ends
left
up
a poem
lip-locked
for.
with Vince Vaughn later.
Yeah, awkward. That's a weird scene to
But
put
we'll
in
get
this
to that.
movie. Yeah, so this
That
is
was
when
the scariest part of the movie.
That was pretty creepy. He's still have the mask on.
No.
Oh no, okay. I'm only looking at the computer. But yeah. So they're catching up to them. They whack Millie with a little putter. They get her down, and then they notice that Booker's running off, and they're like, okay, well, we gotta stop this kid because the serial killer is here, who, unbeknownst to him, is not the serial killer, the butcher, but we gotta stop him and make sure that he doesn't call the cops. We'll just take both of them away. We'll figure this out. We'll reconvene. They leave this little mini golf area. But then we now cut to what is going to be Millie in the chair, tied up. Butcher, but Millie is tied up now in Josh's. This is Josh's house.
Yes.
But Josh, Nyla, and Booker, who was knocked out unconscious, so he couldn't call the police or anything like that. But he wakes up, and the Butcher, again, another scene that we could probably jump past because it's a little bit stretched out more than it probably needs to, but it's it's the Butcher explaining to Booker that this is some sort of Freaky Friday thing. I'm Millie, that's the Butcher, blah, blah, blah. And then Millie's doing the whole, like, no, they're crazy. Like, if you believe them, then you're going to be held responsible. Help me, Booker!
Which reminded me of one of the characters from the animatronic... one of the animatronics,
Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, one of them didn't. One of
the
them
one that's like pretending to be good.
I want to be on your side.
Yeah.
Bring me over.
But it was a fun. I think that was a good job by Kathryn doing the whole like trying to do the guy acting as the girl. Like, oh, what would a girl say? Like, oh, Booker, Booker. Just the whiny tone at the end. Like, not really selling it good, but like selling it like somebody who wouldn't talk like that would.
Right. So she did a fair job too at projecting the guy trying to be the young girl.
Mm-hmm. But they did a good job with that. So they eventually, the Butcher recites a poem that apparently Millie had left in his locker.
Had written and left in his locker anonymously.
Another reference to...
It's not a lot of teen movies.
Another
It's kind
reference
of like
to It.
Yeah, maybe.
Where the kid writes
but again,
the
it's
poem.
the same. That also was a plan. A lot of that teen inspiration, where a lot of teen movies was like, oh, we write anonymous poems to the person that we like, and it's kind of like that same deal.
But it did remind me of the Ben, your hair is winter fire.
Yes.
Why is Millie tied up in the chair?
Yeah.
We're
role playing. A quick little scene. Nyla, Booker, and the Butcher head to the police station to get the knife back because they know that they now need that knife to complete the ritual so they can switch bodies back. And they rush in. Nyla rushes in, leaving Booker and the Butcher in the car together. Nyla is meted by Charlotte, and tells her the Butcher kidnapped them earlier and that he's out back. She rushes out of the police station so Nyla can start looking for that evidence locker. So Josh is now back home with what he referred to as Murder Barbie, which I thought was a fun little... That could have been like the tagline for this. But she's still tied up. Millie is clearly kind of trying to get out of the ropes, but just kind of behind his back. And that's when Josh's mom comes home early, and he has to explain that they're role-playing. And they have the fun little back and forth, like, oh no, she's just really committed. She never breaks character. Yeah. And the mom's like, isn't this like a sex thing?
And
she goes,
and it does the whole funny thing of it's not the kid coming out as gay, it's the gay kid trying to sell that he's straight, saying like, Mom, we need to talk. I need to tell you I'm straight.
You are many things, but straight is not one.
Yeah, you are many things, Josh, but straight is not. It's like, well, you did not sell that one, but a fun little kind of spinning of things that we see in movies.
On your typical movie.
Yeah, it takes a lot of those cliche style movie moments and finds a way to really flip it. The mom's not buying it, and she's like, okay, look, we need to get this girl out of these. So she picks up a giant butcher knife.
It's one in every house.
Because why not? But as she is going towards Millie to let her out, she I do like that scene, but she finally wrestles loose, kicks the mom. The mom drops the knife. Millie grabs the knife, chases the two into another room. Now Josh and his mom are locked in the room, and Millie's banging on the door and complaining about like how, I forget the exact verbiage, but this body's so weak, or this body sucks, or something along those lines, where I thought was pretty funny.
Body's fucking useless.
Yeah, this body's useless. That's what it is. So we're at that point. Josh then calls Nyla to let them know, like, hey, she's out. She's on the loose. So we jump back to the station, and this is where Charlotte comes back into the police station, and Nyla's kind of caught red-handed behind her back, holding the knife and a phone, and clearly something is up. So Charlotte kind of puts her at gunpoint a little bit and is like, drop the evidence, what do you have, blah, blah, blah. And this is where like reality's gonna come crashing into this little area, because we haven't had we've had the interactions with the friends where they've become convinced and they understand what's going on, whereas her sister, her mother, the other outside people, like, nobody's really aware of this. They're aware of the killer being out there, but nobody else is in on the whole body swap storyline yet. And it's gonna be a hard sell for the sister cop, so we'll kind of get there. And this is the
back seat with you there, buddy.
This is the
Cringe-worthiest.
scene. I don't think this one will make it to Horror Nights as a part of the house, but
You
it will
never
be
know.
the scariest
Walk by a
fucking
car and you
part.
see them like going
Making
at it.
out.
Oh, jeez.
Oh god! Essentially, Millie's talking with the kid that she likes, Booker. Booker asks, "Hey,
But-
is it okay if I sit in the back? Come back over with you?"
Oh, but Millie's still in the killer's
And
body.
Still in the butcher's body. They end up connecting. They kiss because
No, it's a.
I guess love sees no
I guess
boundaries
that's
or whatever.
The whole point is that you love the person inside, not
I
the
don't-
person on the outside.
I can't say that if the person I loved was transformed into a 40, 50-year-old dude, I would, within the first 5 minutes, just start kissing
have
them in the
become
back
so
of the truck.
invested in the
Yeah,
in
I
the
don't.
story.
I don't know if that would swing.
I thought for sure as they were gonna lean in, like the cop was gonna come to the car, and they were it's gonna be like
or-
a stop right.
Yeah.
I thought they stopped this
Or
far
they'd
apart,
stop- yeah.
but nope, they went right in.
Yeah, you would have imagined that they would have been like, oh wait, they snapped out of it. Like your reality
or
broke.
something
Or
took their attention away.
nope, they went in for the smooch, and they just started kissing.
and to be honest with you, he initiated it. It wasn't
Yeah.
even like
And he
her.
followed the lead, which is Booker.
Yeah,
Booker initiated, which is
initiates
even
it.
weirder. But this is Jesus Christ, who fucking knows what this
Touched her nose.
It's just so awkward. So let's just whoop.
Imagine
Oh, we're
pitching-
skipping ahead a little bit.
Can you imagine pitching that
To Vince Vaughn.
just pitching the scene to Vince Vaughn?
Hey, you're gonna have
It's
to
like,
kiss a
a man-
19-year-old kid in this movie. It's gonna be amazing. Jesus Christ.
I want to have the first kiss moment.
As he goes on
As
further,
Vince Vaughn.
as he goes on further in his career, people are like, oh, well, what else have you started? Oh, I was in a show. I was in a movie with this movie. I was with Vince Vaughn. Oh, you worked with him? Yeah,
I kissed him.
I had a romantic kissing scene with him. Wait, what? Excuse me?
Oh yeah, he was a serial killer, but he's in the body of a teenage girl, or vice versa.
Oh yeah, I know Vince. He's a really good kisser. Excuse me?
Wait, what? The guy from Old School? Yeah, that Vince Vaughn. But what we did skip past was Millie rushed after trapping Josh and them. Millie rushed to the police station, and then the butcher had to break out of his makeout session and chase her in there as well. But her sister holds the butcher up at gunpoint because why wouldn't you? That's the serial killer. At which point Millie takes the dagger and kind of runs out while the sister is still kind of holding up the butcher and Nyla because they've just been one's been acting weird, one is the serial killer, and starts to put the butcher into the holding cell. At which point somebody jumps out. I think Josh comes in, does a yell or something, and then the butcher has an instance to slap away the gun, walk the sister into the holding cell, and does the whole like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, blah, 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 and I'm so sorry about your hamster,
Yeah,
I thought I could swim.
I thought your hamster could swim.
But like giving us that sense of like trying to give some insight that only the sisters would know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they particularly sold it or not, but they locked the sister up in the holding cell and chased after Millie, who now has the knife, took the police car, and obviously, because we've referenced it before, is going to that homecoming dance as a slaughter fest. Maybe a reference to prom night? Something like that. Maybe there's some references in there as well. But Millie is brought to the back room for, I guess, some sort of like orgy style hookup because there's 3 dudes and one of her. It's that high school trope that they're gonna probably get this high school girl drunk, take advantage, and she spins that on its head.
And I'm gonna kill the 3 of them.
Takes the bottle like she's gonna swig it, dumps it, smashes one kid in the head, slices another throat, and then of course
Chainsaw.
there's a chainsaw.
At that point, I was like, no, please, no.
Just a full fueled up chainsaw feet away from a high school prom
Well,
there's a serial killer.
Well, again, the prom was canceled. So this elaborate thing that's set up here, the kids did themselves. Remember, they went to the abandoned mill to set this up. So that's quite the elaborate.
It's also
party.
very much obviously. It's if you look at the chainsaw, it's a Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah,
like, it looks exactly like the one.
I'll be like, oh, this is from the 70s.
Yeah, it's obviously there for a reason.
But of course, so I'm sure there's going to be a chainsaw at the Horror Night house because
that's.
They have them anyway, so might as well pick a property that includes it. Josh, Nyla, and the gang have showed up now to the dance, and they're looking for Millie. The Butcher and Booker kind of stumble upon the remains of the chopped up kids right there above my head. Good timing on that one. And Josh is looking for Millie, and then some really drunk jockey kid is like, "Oh yeah, like I've seen her. Come follow me. I'll show you to Millie." And then this is where the drunk kid is in the back with Josh and comes on to him, kisses him, and then plays on that trope of like the drunk closeted jock who's like, "Oh, if you tell anyone, I'm gonna fucking kill you." And I was like, okay, well, this kid's dead now. And then instantly a fish hook or a hook, not a fish hook, it's small, but like something that you would probably, because they're in the mill, it's something that you would move the hay bales with.
Yeah, or if it was a meat plant, maybe,
or a meat hook or something like that.
Yeah.
But the meat hook comes punching through the wall into the kid's eye and pulls him back. Which, though, at this point, that pull right there,
it's phenomenal.
It's great, but we've already established that Millie's body isn't strong, so it was a little bit of a.
Yeah, I mean...
We'll look past it, just because it is what it is. It's a Blumhouse horror movie. But I could see that coming into the Horror Nights. I mean, in the house. I mean, this house, we'll get to it at the end, but there's a lot of options for good scenes that are fairly distinct from one another. There's a lot of different settings, so we'll kind of jump on that at the end. And we're pretty much getting towards the end, and we'll kind of pile through this last bit and get into any last little things that we have going. But the Butcher and Millie are now face to face again, and now the dagger's in play. Char is also so they run down the Butcher with the dagger, and it's just about midnight. Butcher has the dagger in the air, and we get the little alarm, the beep 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 beep. He looks at it, and it says 12 o'clock, midnight.
Didn't make it.
So they're out of time. And I thought this was a weird thing, but it does a flashback of Millie and Booker, and Booker tells her, like, oh, a little secret or a life hack or whatever, set your clock 5 minutes fast.
He told her that when she was late for the woodworking class. So she came in, and he's like, oh, Trip.
But it's fun that the Butcher also had his watch set 5 minutes early because it was on the Butcher's hand.
No, one of her friends put it on there when they decided they had 24 hours. When they decided that they knew they were against time.
So it was the friends. It was the kid.
So it was like Josh's or whatever his name was.
Okay, so that makes more sense.
One of the friends put it on there and said, and set the time.
Okay, because I was like, man, it's pretty coincidental that two different people had that same mindset. I've heard it before, but like...
No, it was one of their...
Okay.
Well, it would have had there been her watch. So somebody must have taken it off of her and put it on him.
Him at some point.
But they did put the watch on him.
Mm-hmm. But then they also noticed that the bells didn't ring. So that was like what cued the like, wait, so then what time is it actually? And then they realized they still got a little bit of time, and that's the cute scene right there.
I love how like they dramatically stretch the time out too. It's like, you have 5 minutes, stab the fucking kid in the fucking
head. I'm like,
what are we doing here?
I got 4.5 minutes to kill. Let's just hang out for a little bit. But no, she stabs down, and we get the same sort of magical effect, and we can assume now that the bodies have been swapped. Which is funny that like when they swap back, it's instantaneous versus the last time it happened at midnight.
Well, I think
like it waited till they were sleeping.
Well, maybe that's the point. Like maybe the whole thing is supposed to be that it's at midnight you switch bodies and you've got 24 hours to.
Yeah, but it kind of switched instantaneous, which good for us. The hero did their job and they swapped, but then the real Butcher is back in the Butcher's body, right there. But thankfully, the cops showed up just in time to sort of smoke him. They give him a couple. They give him a couple shots. But that madness of outside the bodies is kind of over. We cut after this to a little ambulance scene where
another well worn out, the old
Michael
ambulance
Myers.
scene.
Yep.
yeah, the post massacre ambulance tie-up
They sit together and they have a heart-to-heart. Yeah.
of the like, oh, well, I guess now that we're in our bodies, we can... We're like, oh, yeah, because I totally wasn't 5 seconds away from banging Vince Vaughn in the
Right.
back, of
the
the
car.
van out by the police station while we were, running the clock down to see if I ever switched bodies back.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of had that little heart-to-heart, and we can skip ahead because at the end of that, there's just an ambulance that rushes down the road with the butcher in it. Heart monitor is beep, 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 beep. Cut's dead. Or is he? It pans down a little bit, and the little finger heart rate monitor is no longer attached to him. So, safe to assume sequel, but it doesn't end there. It gives us more scenes, and I really thought that, like, that was the end. Like, I was ready for it to end, and I kind of would have liked it better just ending there. I know, like, open-ended endings are super cliche, but this is a cliche movie, so I would have expected it to end there.
Yeah.
Because what comes next seems like there's a lot that we missed,
Right.
and I would have liked to seen that. How did he escape the ambulance? How many people did he kill? Blah, blah, blah. Because it goes right to Millie's house. Now, Millie's sitting with her mom in a bed talking. She goes down to the stairs and shuts and locks the door, and apparently Char didn't close it. So we're like, oh, okay, a little suspicious, a little suspenseful. And she kind of tensely walks through the house. Suspense is building. She hears a quick noise and sees nothing. She now opens the door slowly to walk into the other room, and at which point we see that the butcher is behind her. Dun, dun, dun. So I wish that this whole last scene just wasn't part of it because, like I said, there's a chunk missing that we didn't see, and I would have liked to have seen that, but I also don't need the movie to be extended for no reason. I would have been fine if the last shot was the heart rate monitor not on his finger. Just throw the freaky title back up there and call it a day.
The ambulance like crashed into a tree. The steam coming off of it. The
Yep.
doors just left open.
Mhm.
Roll the credits.
Yeah, something like that, because the finale of this was like just kind of quickly rushed. It seemed like we were not set up for it, but maybe that's what they were going for because this movie is about going against the grain, so to speak. But she opens the door, the butcher's behind her, and then with a knife, and that's when the sister comes through with her gun, holds it on the butcher, but then of course, oh my god, there's no bullets in it. Which you would think that a cop
girls shouldn't play with guns.
Which you would think that the cop would have noticed the weight difference with their gun loaded or empty, especially one of those like I don't. It must be a super small town because it's not like an actual clip. It was like I don't know if the whole clip is missing. There's a weight difference that she should have picked up on if your job is sheriff or cop or whatever, but she didn't pick up on that. There's some back and forth banter between the butcher and the Millie with the knife, and then the mom comes in and smokes the butcher in the head with, wouldn't you know it, an empty wine bottle or vodka bottle, or clearly just playing into the drunk mom trope. They wrestle around a little bit, they tussle, and then the fight keeps on going, but then Millie kind of pulls a knife on him and then ends up dropping it, and she kicks the butcher in the balls because he's like, oh, he's talking about how, like, I've been in your body, I know how weak it is, and then she's like, oh, well, I've been in your body, and I know it's weak. And
she's like, I think I learned one thing, or
Yeah.
I learned some things.
And she kicks him in the balls, and that's when everyone just kind of jumps in, tag teams him, and then during the fight, obviously, some stuff got broken. The butcher is down on his back, and then Millie takes what looks to be like a chair leg or a table leg.
Something from a piece of furniture.
It's a big thing. Stabs it into his back, and then, like, just kicks it. Like, mega kicks it, judo kicks it
Right
through
through
his chest. Like, there's no walking away from this one. And then we get that weird little, like, is she bad now? Because she's got, like, the blood on her, and she said, I forget her closing tagline.
It's supposed to be like this, the full circle. Now that she's no longer the timid, picked on one, and the whole experience kind of fixed the family dynamics. The older daughter and the mother now are back to get, like, they're a family unit. She's not the timid, picked on one anymore. So that's all part of the whole non-horror half of this storyline, where you just the feel-good story.
Yeah, right. The feels.
But that is Freaky from 2020.
Freaky.
What did you guys think?
Again, I think most of how I felt was said throughout the episode. I think that, again, it's a good movie. I think it was fun. I think I like how it turns everything on its head. I wouldn't say that it's like the first thing it's ever done it. Obviously, it's not the first movie that's really kind of turned some of these tropes on themselves and threw something different back at you. It reminded me a lot of the Christmas one we watched. Was it
Silent Night, Deadly Night?
No, the other one with the little boys and the girl, the babysitter.
Oh,
what do they call that?
Better Watch Out.
Better Watch Out. It kind of reminded me of that, where that movie kind of takes the home invasion trope and completely turns it on its head.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to this, very much like you think you're going to get one thing, you know kind of where it's going, but you don't expect everything that happens in it. And I kind of like that. So overall, thought it was a great movie.
Yeah. Any last...
It got slow in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vince Vaughn carried this movie. I think if someone else had played that role that was less known and you didn't know, and maybe didn't have the ability to do the physical, performance he did, I think he carried this movie.
Yeah.
But other than it being slow during the middle, I think it was fun.
It's a fun movie. That's kind of where I think I've expressed my overall take on this movie. It's just a fun, stupid movie. Like you said earlier, the whole storylines don't necessarily need to be horror movies, but it is fun to like take something that shouldn't be, put it in together, and see what happens.
The other thing is, a lot of these movies we watch, it's expected, but you have to overcome, at least, especially some of the secondary characters, some really bad acting.
Yeah.
There was no character here that I said, oh my God, the acting is terrible on that character, this
Yeah.
character. All of the players, even the secondary and third layer players here, maybe not great actors, maybe not good acting, I don't know, because you didn't notice any bad acting. So so nobody stood out as bad acting, so that is a plus.
So before we get into like Horror Nights talk, let's just go through our fear and beer ratings really quick. So again, first time listeners, we give a fear and beer rating scale 1 through 5. Your fear rating is how scary this movie is, and your beer rating is how much you enjoyed this movie. So Seamus, let's start with your fear rating.
I think it's almost like it feels kind of like a broken record. We watch a lot of movies where the fear
not that
rating
scary,
is just
but they're
not
fun. Yeah.
that high. And I think with this one, I've got to give it I'll be fair to it and give it a 1.
Okay.
Fear rating.
Yep.
Again, there's nothing in it that's particularly scary. And I don't think that's what they were going for anyways, so it's not like it's a bad thing. Like, I think if they were trying to take this serious and make it scary, then it would have been a lot worse of a movie. I think because it's not scary is kind of where we're going with it. I think much like Scream, wasn't overtly scary, but it played on the tropes of the horror genre, and that's kind of what you saw it for. So I'll give it a 1 just because there were some jump geese type stuff in it, but nothing that was like overtly like
I'm not on the edge of my seat.
I'm not on the edge of my seat.
All right. Kevin?
Well, for fear, again, and I've said this before, like the movies that I consider would be a high fear rating, for me, my genre is like the supernatural,
The paranormal.
exorcisms, possessions, that demon stuff that in the back of your mind, it's like, that shit could happen. That kind of like, if it's really late at night, it's dark, and you're watching it by yourself, and you kind of feel stupid because you're like, got a little...
Yeah.
So that's...
So you're
fear
saying
to me.
this couldn't happen.
So I'm saying on these things, maybe I'm going to... The fear factor, I'm going to judge differently, right? So, okay, this is a slasher. So it's not really going to be fear, but I'll judge it based on if it's a slasher, I'm going to base it on what were the kills like. So I'll give it a solid 2.
Okay.
Because there was some good... The tennis racket thing, the table
yeah.
saw.
Yep.
So I have to... Otherwise, I'm going to rate all of these slashers as like, 0 to 1.
Because they're not that, yeah.
So I
They're
think
not scary.
if you look at it in a perspective of, okay, for a slasher fear rating, solid 2. Enjoyment, beer rating, 3, probably.
3 on the beer rating? Nice. So I, as well, I'm in Seamus's camp with the fear. I'm going to put it at the 1. Because again, and I'm giving the 1 for the reasons that you did. The kills. the kills were good. There was very fun kills in this movie. The girl that got obliterated as ice cubes, turning into that. I mean, the whole intro with the beer bottle, the toilet, the tennis racket, the table saw. There's good kills in this. So I'll go with a 1 on that. And then for my beer rating, I'll get it a... I'm gonna go where you were at. I'm at that 3 mark. It's just a little over halfway. This was a fun movie. Will I rewatch it? Probably. Am I gonna rewatch it a lot? Probably not. This might be like a once a year kind of thing. But these Blumhouse movies, I am a sucker for them. I know they're not amazing, like Happy Death Day, like The Purge, stuff like that, where like I know it's not great movies, but man, this company does put out some fun, and I don't want to say original because it's not an original idea. It's Freaky Friday, Happy Death Day is Groundhog's Day. It's not original, but what's original is taking that and putting it into a horror movie, meshing the two genres. I think is a fun original thing, and I do get excited when Blumhouse has something new coming out because they do pretty good, and they can switch it up and they can make some scary movies if they really want to. I mean, they were the ones that put out the new Halloween. They have the Black Phone coming out. Those look like true horror movies, whereas these, they know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
So Seamus, for your beer rating, how much did you enjoy this movie?
I don't want to give it too high of a rating because I feel like I give too many movies a high rating, but
Which is good.
I think I'll give it a 3.5. I want to
Okay.
go 4, but I'm gonna go 3.5. Again, I like Blumhouse movies for these movies.
Mm-hmm.
I like the campy, not taking itself serious, but also showing its inspiration in a great way rather than just strictly stealing stuff and saying, well, we're making something new. No, you just stole from a movie 20 years ago. At least they're doing something new with tropes that are 30, 40 years old at this point. It's much like with A24. I watch A24 movies because, much like you, I need a specific type of movie to make me feel uncomfortable, to make me feel weird, or make me feel scared, if you want to call it that. So, like A24 or Blumhouse, I go for it for a specific reason. Not a huge fan of the Purge movies. Not a huge fan of a lot of the different things that they do that's kind of more serious, at least in the Blumhouse camp. And that could just be because I feel like rather than when they go in this direction where it's like we're obviously lampooning the genre, but we're not taking ourselves too seriously. So I enjoy that side of it. So I don't think it's quite good enough for a 4 from my perspective, but it's close. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 to say a little different, but I think it was good. I think, obviously, like Kevin was saying, the acting is amazing in this movie. Well, I won't say amazing, but the acting is good.
In comparison to other horror movies,
Right. And
amazing
think,
isn't too
and
far off.
Like I said in the beginning of the episode, I really do think that Blumhouse does that in a way that a lot of production companies don't, is they find the right actors to fill these roles that aren't necessarily A-list actors that they need to spend millions of dollars on. You know, they can stay low budget because they don't. It's almost like how Marvel is really good at finding the right person to play the right character.
Great casting,
in the sense that they have a really good casting department at Blumhouse. They know who they want to fill specific roles, but they don't necessarily need to go out and find, the top female star, the top male star to fill their various roles. And I think they can get away with, writing certain roles for specific people. Like obviously Vince Vaughn is the go-getter for this movie. Like when you see Vince Vaughn's in a horror movie, that's the name that you pull people in with. And then of course people that are more into the genre, more into genre films, they'll recognize like Kathryn. They'll recognize certain other smaller actors and they go, oh, they were in that favorite indie movie that I really liked. But most people like us are like, I don't know who that is, but she's really good in it, so works for me. And then of course they use that savings on the effects, and that shows because the effects in this movie for the most part are really good. The only one I didn't really like, I know you guys liked it, was the frozen girl smashing. I think if they just left her frozen, I would have liked it more. But it was obviously clearly CGI.
Oh, very
CGI.
CGI.
Super CGI.
Yes,
I was like,
yes, it was.
yeah, it took me a little bit out of it, but again, I can forgive it because I think that's what they were kind of attempting to do. Because it's low budget. You can only expect so much from a low budget film.
Yeah. So as far as just rewatching this movie, The prospect of it coming to Halloween Horror Nights, are you excited? Is there some scenes that stuck out to you that would be kind of fun to walk through? Are you not as excited because maybe it's not a movie for Horror Nights?
You know what's funny is, from my perspective, I don't know yet. Because if they're going to pair it with Black Phone, which looks like more, like you said, not like super serious drama based.
It's like a true horror.
It's going to be more of a true horror film where they're going to take it seriously. They're going to take it more of the dark side of it rather than, hey, let's add these funny, one-liners and that sort of thing and make it more of a thrill ride. How they mix the two together will really determine how I feel about it. I think if it was just a Freaky House, or if it was like a Blumhouse collaboration, but they did like Freaky and Happy Death Day again, and a few of those ones that they've done before, but to kind of stay in this realm of goofy, funny horror thriller, but trying to mix funny horror thriller with serious-ish.
It is tough.
Slasher. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
It is tough to like go from one to the other, and they really don't mesh the rooms. If they do it like the last time, it's like you walk into a room, it's a freaky room or a Black Phone room. It's not like there's a little bit of both in the same room. Right. When you walk into a room, it's either freaky or...
So they would have to almost do like freaky in the first part of the house
and then Black Phone to the end.
Or
and
vice versa.
Yeah. We brought you to HHN last year. You got some reps under your belt. Anything stand out to you in this that you're like, I could see this happening, or...
You'd have to pull, like you said, where the kills happened. I don't think the movie as a whole is really conducive. I think there's a lot of other movies that are more conducive to a house than this. The premise of this really was the swapped bodies, and how does that translate into a physical house? Not really well. Right. So basically, you'd be just stealing the kills and incorporating them. Okay, but
fun.
I don't think the movie lends itself.
I think it's one of those houses like we've talked about where you're not going into it necessarily for a story. You're not going to get the story-ish. And you will a little bit, in the sense that it's going to be kind of funny to see like the Vince Vaughn scare actors as the good guy in a way. Yeah. And the little blonde scare actors are
as the main enticing one.
Guys. So that'll be kind of cool to see. But yeah, you're not going to get much of the story. It's going to be more set piece.
Just kill scene.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Blumhouse one might be some sort of placeholder house still. I'm hoping that and as much as we just talked about this movie and how much we did kind of enjoy it, I don't want it to necessarily take up a spot at a house, especially if it's like a multi-property house, because while some of these things would be really cool to walk through, the mini golf area, the opening kill scenes, the buzzsaw, I do enjoy the house stories. I enjoy like walking through. I enjoy hearing the stories and being in the atmosphere. And much kind of like it's similar to me like the Cary, Ohio house from last year, where there wasn't much of a story. It was just kind of like a best of like, oh, here's a cool scene. And walk into a room. The next room doesn't make any sense. It's just another scene. Okay, walk into another thing doesn't make any sense. Just another scene. I feel myself losing interest in those houses because I go in there for not just the scares, but an elaborate story, which you can tell. Look at Wicked Growth. Look at Puppet Theater. You understood what the story was from walking through, and then walking through this house, there would be no story. It's just fun kill scene, fun kill scene, fun kill scene.
Yeah, which is kind of what IP houses tend to end up being anyways. Like, to be fair to it, IPs tend to be, hey, look, you're in the world of the IP that you like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they wanted to just make a house that was very lighthearted and comedic, right?
It could be the Ghostbusters.
You got to have him. You got to have the big tall guy with the Aaron
Rodgers mask
running around banging into things.
Yeah.
And then as you're walking down one of the halls, like it's the stalls, and all you see is the back of the tall guy's head, and you hear this. Right? I mean, you could.
And I'd probably rather, if I could choose, either the Blumhouse house with multiple properties or just a freaky house, I would probably pick just freaky, because that way at least we would get the story of the movie versus like a chopped up best of moment, where if it was a full house we could get moments like that where it would like break up a little bit and it would be a full story. You could start it with the killer attacking Millie, and then the middle scenes it's Millie killing, and then at the end it's them swapping back, so like you could actually get the story out. But with a best of chopped up thing, you're not going to get as much of that. But that's what I got for this week. Any other closing thoughts on Freaky from 2020?
That covers it.
I think
Yeah,
we
pretty much covers
did
it from my
about
side.
as much as we could on that one. Man, all right. So we got some cool stuff coming up in May. We have an episode coming up maybe next week, maybe the week after. We're not really going to announce it yet because we're still in the works of kind of lining up a recording date. But something that we are going to be doing this weekend that's going to be really cool, and we will be sure to link it over to all of our pages, is we are going to be jumping onto our friend's podcast, the RIP Tour. We're going to be talking some horror nights with the folks over there.
Yep.
So when we get a release date on that, and when it comes out, we'll be sure to tell you. Also coming up in May, believe it or not, is our 2-year anniversary.
Yikes.
Crazy.
Been doing this for 2 years.
Our 2-year anniversary is coming up, and our 2-year anniversary lines
Crazy.
up pretty much with 100 days until HHN.
Yep.
So much like last year, we're going to be doing another big fun episode. We've reached out to some of our other podcast friends, our HHN buddies, and we got some people on board. And again, because we're a couple weeks out from recording, I don't want to announce anything yet and kind of give it away, or if something timeline doesn't work out, we can't make it work. So just be on the lookout. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up in May, and who knows, maybe some HHN announcements. I'm expecting mid to late May for some stuff to come out from their official site. But until then, this is Nick.
This is Seamus.
And Kevin.
Happy haunts.
It's cursed. Cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.